Welcome. Hello. How's it going?
Hello.
How's it going?
Well, it's going very well. Thank you very much. I always seem to do these things literally 2 minutes after I've gone for a run. So forgive me.
You look wonderful.
Forgive me. How are you, mate?
I'm not too bad. It's Friday. It's a Friday evening. No, I'm not really in that mood. I'm more like probably light a candle, watch a movie, eat my body weight in ice cream. So
It sounds nice.
I'll see you there. Yeah. All right, what are we doing?
Well, we're here to talk about getting over it. I mean, First of all, congratulations to you.
Yeah, to you as well.
It's amazing. But as we did with the new Insane, I thought it might be nice to share with everybody, how the track came to be and kind of just all of that kind of stuff. But maybe like with a movie trailer, we should listen to some of the track first of all.
Andy B. All right.
This is Getting Over It.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Living Low, where the stories are raised, where we glitter and glow. I know I'm not the only one who's ever been alone. Gotta get this off my chest and I'm not sorry at all. So I keep knocking it down and I keep getting back up. You keep coming around, but now I'm giving you up. What a terrible sound, what would you give it for love? I never see you around, so what? Now I'm giving up, I'm getting dumb and getting over it. Now I'm giving up, I'm getting dumb and getting over it. Down, I'm not out, I'm not shaking from the cold. I'm done giving up, I'm getting dumb and getting over it. Yeah, just get over it.
Okie dokie. I love it. I absolutely love it. Well,
yeah,
it sounds amazing, which is a great thing and a very cool thing, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would love to talk about like how it started and everything to do with it, if that's all right with you.
For sure. Best place to start, I reckon.
The beginning.
The beginning.
So what was the beginning?
So there's a handful of tracks there's quite a lot of tracks actually that came out of Overstone, that when we were all living together, 2018, 17, 18?
Yeah, 17, 18.
17 into 18. We all moved into a house together in kind of the middle of England.
Yeah, bang in the middle.
Right bang in the middle. And to kind of give a bit of context as to where we were kind of geographically, we were all together when this song was born.
Using our minds.
Yeah, I guess you get more into, the kind of ethos behind it and how it kind of actually came to be, but that was where we all were.
Yeah, I've spoken about this so much in like interviews and stuff like that. But I mean, I remember like growing up as a kid, watching movies, about the Rolling Stones, and they obviously went when they had that sort of hoo-ha with the taxman, they went into exile in the south of France. And I've always been fascinated, I think, by artists that go and put themselves in like physical situations in order to like be creative. And I think, that kind of stemmed from my love of like Bob Dylan and the whole like myth that surrounded Dylan, like him going, to the Crossroads and also, going to Woody Guthrie's place and then the Stones going to France in exile and writing this record. And I was just like, yeah, man, I'd love to do that. Like for me, I'm so inspired by life, and I always try and put myself in situations that I would never really be in normally without sort of forcing myself to get there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when it came time to working on new Counterfeit stuff after the first album, which also was inspired obviously by personal experience, but was also so influenced by like the environment in which it was recorded and written rather, that I was like, well, let's, move into the next chapter. And I think Overstone and the idea of living very remotely was something that that just fascinated me. So like you said, we all moved into this house for, what was it, 6 months, was it?
6 months, yeah. Yeah, it would have been almost pretty bang on.
Yeah, and we got some really good material out of that place, and this song was one of them. I think this was written. I think this one was written just after 1144 was written. I believe that 1144 was written at around December.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Maybe even November, because it was around the same time that we were playing the shows with. We played that. We went on tour with While She Sleeps.
Yeah.
And I believe that 1144 was around that time, and that was definitely
for sure
November time, because I remember I was in Hong Kong, and then I literally flew back the day of the first show with While She Sleeps. I think that was November. And so this one, I think, came out of me in January, as far as I can see.
Yeah. I think so. I was digging around old files to find some stuff for this, and they were all kind of coming up and saying January around that time. Pretty fresh in. Yeah,
and I think it had that, like, it's definitely still got some of that, like, residual energy coming through from, like, 1144. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's still got that kind of punky feel to it, and at the time I was listening to, like, a lot of, like, Placebo and stuff like that, and this track, like, this track's pretty simple in its verse. It's 2 notes, and that's something that, like, Placebo do all the time. They just use, like, 2 notes, and I think I was very much, like, inspired by that and by what I was listening to. And I tend to kind of just dive into things anyway. I tend to become obsessed. And so, that's kind of where it came from. But the song that you hear now, like, is not what it originally was. It's taken taken a few, like, twists and turns. And I think particularly, like, lyrically and particularly vocally as well, it's taken a few twists and turns. I mean, the sort of meat and bones of the track happened pretty quickly. It's in tertiary form, so it's pretty, it's pretty straight up.
If I can find
but
this.
Like, is that
I mean,
the demo?
this is the very first voice note that I have of this, and there's no structure in this. You can hear the initial guitar idea, and that's the only thing you can hear. Everything else is different.
What date is that?
I have no idea. It's called Recording 43. So there's no lyrics, there's no melody, there's no chorus. It's just us playing it over and over again in the room. So I think this would have been very, very early on. I don't think it would have even have got onto the computer at this point. So this was November 17th.
Oh, interesting.
No, November 19th, 2017. A lot's changed, but let's just have at it. So you can hear the spark, you can hear the guitar line, drums are different, and there was no chorus. It was just us doing that for a good old 5 minutes. I think maybe Roland was, like, walking around all over the place, bass-wise, not physically. So that was, like, the initial energy, I think, is there on that part, and then you've got the demo from January, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't know, if I'm being honest with you. Like, there's a video that came up a while back that just says 2018 No Prisoners, which was recorded in 2017. you know, which is, I can play, I don't know if you can see my, oh, it's actually just a picture. That's interesting. No, so there is no video. Well, that's not ideal. I don't know where that's gone then. Let's have a look. Videos, here we are. It's just a lot of surfing. Here we are, here we go. Yeah, so this is the video that's just got. And if you were following me or Counterfeit back then, you would have seen that.
Oh, that was something that went up online.
Yeah, I put that up online. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't realize that. Okay.
As I was going through it, and then the original. I think because I was listening to so much, like I was listening to so much Placebo at the time, just because I freaking love that band. But I just kind of like the simplicity of it, and the original first verse, you know, being like totally honest, was, you know, totally inspired by that band, and so much so that I had to change. Let's put it that way. And so yeah, so then yeah, you can hear that there. You know, the song like stayed pretty much the same up into the solo, basically. You know, there's no breakdown post solo, and there's 2 other chords in the solo, but like the song like was done basically.
Yeah, it really didn't. I mean, the solo as well, like you can hear like that's the groundwork for the solo already is in there, and you can hear those bends. It had a slightly different function, I think, on the demo. It wasn't like this is a solo, because it wasn't. The guitar was kind of supplementing. There was a vocal part, like this upwards movement that was going on.
Yeah, well, I mean, that comes from Roland. Yeah. Like Roland's always fucking me to like put vocals in middle eight.
Vocals
like,
on a middle eight.
Fucking at me. He's like, you got a middle eight there, put fucking vocal in. I'm like, nah, man. Yeah. Like I like an instrumental or a solo or something like that. So I think originally, as far as memory serves, there was no vocal on there, and it was just a space.
Yeah. And
then Roland had at me, and I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll try it. And I just didn't love it. Like, there's obviously, you know, there's no words in that. That's just like pure like blah, blah, blah. And then when we got it to America, it was like, I think I was just like, fuck it, man. Like, let's just put the solo in. Like, I was just like, just go with gut. Like, always go with gut and just do the thing that you dig. And then you ended up like absolutely fucking nailing it. And that's a great story, you know, like, I guess moving forward from taking it out of England and bringing it over to America in order for it to be tracked. We had a rehearsal room, if you remember, in somewhere in like North Hollywood, and we had a few like bits that we needed to sort out on a couple of tracks. And I think getting over it, like, you know, we had the meat and the bones already there, so much so that it was like, as far as memory serves, it was one of those things that was like, all right, do the solo, and then let's just try a breakdown. Like, let's just try a breakdown. Yeah. Just bass and drums, you know, and vocal. And we did it, and immediately I was just like, yeah, that feels really good. Like,
that's it.
Really, really nice.
It wasn't long. Yeah, it was a couple of tries of that kind of format. I seem to remember it was like, oh, okay, bass and drums, just bass, just drums, like a couple of times, but it was super quick. that it got into its final format. I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fast. It was
Yeah.
certainly quick. It was one of those things, like I say, you know, when it feels good and it feels right, you just know immediately. And I think also like sonically as well, like and visually in my mind, when you get things like bass and drum breakdowns, and particularly on this track. And I remember, like, I'm a big person of like talking to drummers. Like anyone who remembers what this band was originally, you know, or like not originally, but remembers sort of where this came from, will remember our dear friend Dan Smith. And Dan Smith can attest to the fact that I used to just turn around to him and be like, hit them harder, like hit them fucking harder, go for it. And like, I'm just a big one on just like the Stoke. And I think that
Big
Jimmy,
one on the Stoke, did you just say?
Yeah, I'm big on the Stoke.
Big
yeah,
on the
Stoke.
Stoke.
I'm big on the Stoke. I'm big about I'm big on just being like, let's be fucking stoked all the time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like let's be energized when it comes to it. And drums for me are where that comes from, like drums and bass of like a lot of the time, like where you get the feel for the song. I think, you know, you listen to producers like Steve Lillywhite, you know, and pretty much all producers, but they always start with the bass and the drums. But that's where like the core feeling of the track comes from. And for a track like this, you know, it has this, it's got a nice journey on it, because you've got this kind of nice open 2-note movement in the verses, and then you go into this chorus, which is a bit more like, you know, punchy and edgy and attacky, and then you go back again. But then when we came time to put this middle eight or this breakdown in, it was like, go big, like go towards stadium, think like people with their fucking hands in the air, like I'm stoked on that. I'm feeling that. And I remember turning around to Jim, just going, can you just try like a buka buka blah, ba bu ba bu bu blah? And he did that with Row, like just like slamming out on the bass, and we were all just like, yeah, man, that's fucking cool as shit. Like that sounds sick. Let's do that. So yeah, like that's kind of how it came to be. You know, I think, you know, maybe like 60% vocally and 100% musically. You know, it was there was not much else that we really needed to do, apart from adding what our dear friend Matt Terry, who recorded Enough and Come Get Some and Hold Fire and Family Suicide, like what he would call the I think he calls it the lipstick. That's what he calls it, which is like the sort of bit that you put on, you know, like to kind of flare it up a bit.
Yeah.
And one of those things, bar the solo, which I'm so stoked to talk about, but is the scum gam dum 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 dum, because it's in drop D, right? So like,
yeah.
I'm going to make myself look like an arse here. Yeah, so that's like, that's literally, that's like classic counterfeit writing there, because we tend to use like those movements when you're in drop D are really simple. Like you'll hear it in like Washed Out and stuff like that. But so that movement from the middle finger is like precisely right. But then you wanted to add something more to it, I remember, and you came up with that, which is so sick. Like,
yeah, I can't remember. That happened fairly late. I can't actually remember if it was in my head or where it came from.
Well, it happened in the studio, didn't it?
I think it happened in the studio, but I don't remember coming up with it in the studio. I can't really, but to break it up, and it was just like kind of one of those things. Like, oh, it was kind of funny. And everyone's like, he breaks it up and it makes sense, and it doesn't take away from it, and it just kind of expands the phrase a little bit. I I think that's the function of it. But yeah, it's cool, and I like it's fun to play as well. Actually, that one part took a long time to get. Actually, this song that I remember at the studio.
Well, it's a tough part to play, like that movement. Like that's a
Yeah.
hard movement to do with your fingers, particularly if you're running on the E string or on the D string, playing E fret 2. You know, like that's tough. That's not an easy thing to do. So I remember, I do remember it took you a few tries to kind of get it perfect and get it bang on,
to get it, because it is quite robotic in a weird way. Like it is just running. You've got the drums already, you know, on the side stick going da 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 da, and so everything's quite like bam 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 bam.
Well, that comes from the robotic nature of that line comes from, as with a lot of like tracks that I write on the computer, it comes from like basically getting something that's good in a 4-bar phrase and then just repeating it, like just like dragging it out, just being like, that's fine, we'll just drag that out and then we'll put everything else over the top of it and see what happens. And then you have to transfer that into the playing style, which is really interesting.
It's quite a funny way of doing it. Yeah, it's like when you're born, like, and you're like confined to the grid, suddenly you do enter this funny bit. You enter this funny mark when you go in. You know, you can actually suddenly play with it, and there's so many like little moments in between beats or whatever that matter so much and do so much for the feeling. And sometimes you need that. Like sometimes it can be magical in those spaces, and you can get a whole groove that kind of is born. And then sometimes you're like, no, I want that robotic nature that came from being, you know, on the grid and in the computer. It's a 100%. Funny one. Yeah.
100%, man. I mean, I think going back to like bass and drums and just talking about that, like for me, and I said this in the last session rundown that we did, but it's, you know, fundamentally it's a very strong belief that I have, you know, which is that for me, like the drums, I like them on point, you know, all the time. And I like the bass to be pretty much on point all the time as well. Like, of course, there's great moments, you know, we call those moments the Roland Johnson moments. You know, you'll hear them all over the record, and he does these great little runs and they sound beautiful. But like generally like sticking quite on grid, and then guitar wise you can kind of just be a bit more free. And that's for me where like the real, like what I would probably call like sloppy expression comes through, if that makes sense, you know, like where you're able to kind of hear those either miss notes or added notes or things that are slightly just a bit more kind of frilly, I suppose would be the word that I'm looking for. And then in the chorus, like on the demo, it's just chords. Like
it's just rhythm guitar. Yeah,
it's just rhythm guitar. Like I'll do 2 side pans of guitar. I'll go hard left, hard right times 2. So you've got 4 guitars. I'll use like a crunchy tone that's not too distorted. And then I'll use like a way heavier distorted tone just to kind of get that edge to it.
It's like this sandwich, so you have everything covered, right, the way that you do it. And you want to have the, you know, one double track taking care of the kind of scratchier higher parts, and one also taking care of the lower chunky bits.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. I tend not to. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly right. And so there was no like added flair to that. And I think that comes from me predominantly being, you know, a rhythm guitarist, and B, not the most like technically proficient guitarist. I just kind of go with the flow. So when it got time to take it into the studio, you know, you started adding, because this song's got Sam Bauer like all the way through it guitar wise, so much so that there's parts of this track that I wish you could hear more of, like you're playing, and particularly post choruses. But so like in the chorus you started to add, well, I'll let you talk about it, but you started to add like you know, new
Yeah,
bits.
I mean the chorus was a funny one for this. Because it got quite busy. Like I remember even up until we, you know, went into mix, like there was quite a lot of busyness going on, and the core identity I felt of this chorus, and I think we discussed it, was these big rhythmic chunks. I mean, I'll mute this and let's just take this. Was like the main meat of the chorus was just this. And that like for me is there's so much identity there for the chorus, and it kind of became about how do we fit it in and what do we do. So what we actually ended up doing is we ended up chopping out a whole bunch of stuff in mixing on these lead guitars here. I'm just going to play them together. I'm just going to play them together, the rhythm guitars. I'll put bass in there. And you can hear it's really jagged. Like, it's just really aggressively edited in mixing. And you don't really hear it in context. When you hear it on your own, it's like, oh, God. And it's kind of like what we were talking about with New Insane, where it's like these big strokes. You know, there's nothing is going through with like a really fine comb and doing it. It's like big wedges, like big scoops, not worrying too much about it. And if it works, it works. So I'll play that here. So it gave the main rhythm section, these rhythm guitars and basses, their time to exist, and then you had these little frills, and it kind of became like a call and response thing. And it wasn't always like that. I mean, you can kind of hear bits of it here as well, where they're a bit all over each other at places. And it was just about like kind of almost randomly, like just wedging it out and just taking big chunks out of it just so that it hit when it hit. And when it came in, it was like hard at this point here.
Yeah.
And so it was a funny one with this song, and in a lot of ways, this song is not. There's not that much going on, kind of production wise. I think there's like the only electronics we added to it is this kind of hoovery noise, which I think it's I don't know. It was either the microkorg Minilog or
it's the Minilog,
or one of the K oscillators. I think it's a mixture of like all three.
I think it predominantly is actually the
Chaos pad. But I call it the Hoover, and it gets better. Also has a Hoover in it, but I think it's a slightly different sound. But I'll play it on its own. And then I think that's the Minilog with the bass. And then that's the Hoover.
So sick.
Hey.
And then one of my favorite guitar lines, like it sounds like when you're playing it sounds like, I remember when you did it, it sounded like Gary Clark Jr. And I was like, that is so fucking dope. Like
end of chorus.
End of chorus, man. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it too clearly, but like it's this super tasty fucking line, man. It's so sick.
I'll see if I can. Yeah.
Ooh, I still get the buzz, man. Even now, I still get the buzz. I still get stoked on it. And that like comes at the end of every chorus. Like it's so sick. And it's a shame that it's a bit kind of buried because I'm wailing over the fucking top of it. But it sounds so sick. Like it really does sound so sick. And then And then considering when we're on guitars, like I want to go to solo, man, because like I just want to tell everyone about like how that happens, because it just fucking stokes me out so much. Sometimes in the studio, and particularly with men, there can be a battle to be heard and to be at the top and to be, you know, and it's me, and that's not always like very like conducive to like creativity, because creativity has to come from, you know, like a place of purity and a place of like emotionality and a place of feeling, you know, and ego has no fucking space in that at all. I mean, ego has no space anywhere really. And I remember like tracking a lot of tracking on this song and on this record and on these, you know, on this material comes from a place of like having to kind of just cut all that fucking bullshit out and just like try and get through to like the heart of the individual. And I remember you and I feeling kind of like quite wayward in that, because it like that kind of energy sometimes creates a level of, well, it creates a level of battle. Like it creates this level of like fight. And whilst I believe that like fighting to write a song is really important, when it comes time to like recording it, you've got to be a lot more like calm and a lot more relaxed and like, and just kind of own the space for yourself. And when you have loads of people in there, it doesn't necessarily always work out. So I remember us both kind of being like, oh God, like a bit kind of uneasy. And you had this space because I'm not doing the vocal over this. Fuck this. I'm not doing that. This is a guitar solo moment. Like we can't, you know, it's got to be for you. And you take it away from here, because I don't actually know what happened prior to getting into the studio and this coming down. So I don't know if you went home and like on your own were like practicing this or what.
Well, this one I was like, I know where I want to jump off, because from the demo, there was a line that fit quite well, and you would have heard it earlier. There was like, you know, that existed in the right space and was kind of along the right mood of this kind of like wailing, like, wow. And the whole song's quite like that. So I wanted to go with something kind of closer towards that. But in terms of what happened after it, it was more just trial and error when I was sat down. And it goes into a part of playing that I'm not necessarily most comfortable with. And like I'm not a shredder. I don't shred. I don't sit at home like playing playing sweep, like practicing noodling and like practicing my sweep picking. It's just not where my love of guitar comes from. Like I'll sit down and I play a lot and I practice, but it's not, you know, I'm not sat jamming to Van Halen that much, to put it that way. So solos is still something that I'm quite new to, and we didn't have that many. Or if we did, you always kind of took charge, and even on this record, you do a lot of solos on it as well. But this, and when we're in the studio, it's like whatever works at the end of the day. And I think we're quite open with each other. And you're like, oh, I'm struggling. Like, you got anything? Pass the guitar over. Bam. Like, oh, this works. Like something wicked comes out, and it's, you know, it's shared, and it's not like, oh my God, you have to do it. So there's pressure, but there's obviously a point where people want to help each other. And this was one of the ones where, luckily, it came out pretty quickly. I mean, God forbid, I can't believe it. Like, let's just listen to it. And then I'm not going to solo it. I'll do it with all the guitars. I'll play it from the beginning. End of chorus. so weird just listening to a guitar soloed. Very, very odd. But yeah, there's whammy. You can hear there's whammy in it. Like really, there's not much movement going on, but there's a whammy doing that octave up on it. And that part came quite quickly.
It came stupidly quickly, man. Like the honest truth of it is like you sat there and like you were like, I remember you were just like fucking about for like, you know, I don't know, maybe like 2 runs of it. And then because you hadn't like this had not come out yet, like this had just not come out, like this solo as it was, you had ideas, but like this had not come out. And we got the pedal out, didn't we? We got that whammy octave pedal out.
Yeah.
And you were like, I've got an idea. I'm trying to remember it like exactly how it was, but who knows? It's all crazy, isn't it? I've got an idea on the second half of the first part. Slam it, bring it back. So somebody was manning the pedal.
Yeah.
Somebody was manning the pedal, and then I was sat behind you, holding your strings,
muting your strings,
so that you can just be free enough to be as expressive as you want to be without getting clang of other notes. And I think I turned to you, and we turned to each other, and we were just like, hit record, just fucking hit record, and let's go and see what comes out. And the record button was pressed, and this thing came out of you. Like it just like it like exited your body. And I spoke about this the other day on the live stream. But for me, like with artists, that is like the most important, special, sacred, hallowed experience and thing that you can possibly give the world.
Yeah.
And when I see an artist do something like that, and when I allow myself to do that too, the Stoke for me is so real. Like I just lose my freaking mind. And I remember
it's those moments.
When you did this, there was just like this electricity that came out, and I had to take my hand off the guitar. And you're there, like you look shocked. You look shocked. I'm shocked. Everyone's pumped. And just like hollering. Everyone's like, oh my fucking God. Like,
let's just get it done. Yeah, like finish it. Keep it up. And yeah, it was a couple of takes of it. And yeah. Bloody hell.
Sick. The sickest. And that for me is like, that for me is some of the most exciting parts of like, of making a record. You know, it's like those moments where stuff just happens organically, and that's like, and that's the real important stuff. Like, that's ultimately at the end of the day is the most important stuff that you can give when it comes to music, when it comes to being creative. It's just like that's called intuition, and you can't learn that. The
Stoke is real.
The Stoke was so real. Oh my God.
There was a lot of Stoke. There was a lot of Stoke going on.
And then we have the great breakdown.
The great breakdown. Just give it.
I'm giving up. I'm getting dumb and getting over it now. I'm giving up. I'm getting dumb and getting over it now. I'm not out. I'm not taking from the.
Yeah, massive.
And that was, again, to go back to like how that came about, being back in the room, it's very obvious that should happen. Do you know what I mean? Like you'd be a fool to go back into the chorus big after that solo. Give it time for that solo to have a great moment, have a hands in the air moment, and then slap back in. And another one of my favorite parts of this song is just that tiny little guitar, which is literally just like, it's just open strings. It's just open strings to fall out. Like super simple, but like does what it says on the tin. And that for me is like that for my style of guitar playing is exactly what I'm after.
Yeah.
That's you know, you hear that all over Counterfeit One. Like,
Yeah.
to have that on this song is just, it's just like, it's super fucking cool, man. So yeah.
I mean, I don't know if we've outwardly said it, but you played all rhythms on this. I played most of the leads with T in it, doing some of the kind of more organy parts. And that's how it kind of went on a lot of the. I mean, we can't talk about it a lot more because they're not out, but we'll see when we do it next time. All right. Do you want to talk about vocals? We haven't talked about vocals at all on this.
Yeah, man.
And you did, because you did these on your own. So
I did.
I'll let you. Yeah, you go for it.
Well, so you know, it's a funny one with this track. Like, I wanted to make a point with it, like, immediately, and I wanted to try and make it, you know, as always, I always want to try and make things as good as they possibly can do. And like I said earlier, you know, the original incarnation of the track, you know, was, you know, obviously inspired by Placebo. And as I said, you know, too much so. So I needed to, needed to change that up, you know, got to be honest. And so, you know, when it came time to getting the vocal done, I had to really think about it and dig a bit deeper. And I think given the process of making this record that was, you know, in parts incredibly taxing mentally, you know, like, it was one of those things that I did feel like I was like, man, like, I've just got to get this as good as I possibly can do. And vocals for me, I've got to be comfortable. Like, I've got to be so comfortable when I'm doing vocals. If I'm not comfortable, it's game over. And I'd done vocals with two people beforehand. I'd done vocals with Tom Michener and I'd done vocals with Matt Terry, and mine and Matt's like working relationship on vocals is amazing. And Matt's an incredible producer, an incredible vocal producer, but he wasn't making this record. And I just was like, man, like, I'm just not feeling this, and I need to get this as good as I can do. And so when the track was done, I emailed the mixing engineer, and I emailed the producer, and I was like, yo, can you just send me the instrumental version? Because the song was like another, like, maybe 30-45 seconds long than what it is today. Can you just send me like the instrumental version, and I just need it? And they were like, sure. They sent it over, and I started like chopping it up, and I started like pushing things around and just moving things about a bit and seeing what came out. And I chopped off I think 8 bars off the top of the first verse and 8 bars, maybe no bars off the top of the second verse. Can't remember.
I can't remember.
4 bars.
Yeah,
I think it's four bars maybe off the top of the second verse. And I was living in a studio, like artist studio in downtown LA, and bought this mic that you see here, this Neumann microphone, and and I just started messing about with what I wanted to say and what I wanted to get out. But the walls here in Los Angeles, as anybody who either lives here or has been here will know, the walls here in buildings, unless you live in a, you know, ginormous effing house, are very thin. And that for me is also like a big thing mentally. I'm like, if I know that somebody who's not part of what I'm doing is listening and is not contributing, I'm really like, 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 I don't like that. I don't like that. I really don't enjoy that. And it shuts me down, and it brings me inside. So I was like, okay, well, I need to go somewhere else. So then I went to the producer's house to do it. And again, I felt the same thing. I was like, I'm not feeling it here either. Yeah. I just need a room by myself where I can just be free to express without the conscious thought of going, oh God, there's somebody working next door, there's somebody doing something else, or there's somebody doing something. Yeah, I just need a space where I can just be alone and just get this out. And fortunately enough, someone that we were working with had access to a studio in Beverly Hills, just off Beverly actually, and down the end. And I went in there and I said, look, I need 2 weeks. And I did the same thing that I did on this with 1144 as well, actually. And I was like, I've got 2 songs that I want to get perfect. And they're like, how long do you need? And I was like, well, overall, give me 2 weeks, but it'll probably be less. And they were like, okay, sick. And I think I ended up getting it done in like 5 days on each track.
Yeah.
Like 5 days overall, which is great, you know, vocal production included, because I was doing the vocal production with the help of a very dear friend of mine, Gabriel, and Ruby as well, actually. And which is great, which I love. I love that so much. And yeah, and I felt like with this song, I really wanted it to be a punch. And as like with a lot of things when it comes to music, I wanted it to be an exorcism, and an exorcism of like expression. The chorus remained the same. The chorus we took from the studio that the guitars were recorded in. I felt comfortable with that, but the verses, I was like, nah, it's not right. And so I think in life, for me, and for a lot of us, we can take things that other people give us, like emotionally. We can take them on board, and we can let them kind of like become us, rather than having this like super strong sense of self and a super strong sense of own identity. And you hear it a lot of the time. People are like, oh, I'm just looking to find out who I am. And I love that. And I, God knows I go through that a lot. And I have to always remind myself to be in me. But with a lot of like life experience, I think we can own other people's shit for the sake of owning other people's shit, for the sake of not like letting things go and letting things out. And it's so important that we kind of talk through everything, that we kind of are like, yo, this happened and I'm not stoked on that and I don't agree with that. But we got to do it with love, and we got to do it with kindness, right? Like that's kind of what life is about. If you do it with anger and you do it with hatred, you're only going to continue to fuel the anger and the hatred. You have to do it with love. You have to release yourself from the binds of others with love. And that's what this song is about. It's about releasing myself and oneself from the binds of others and my own continual thinking or recollection in order to be present. And I heard a great thing the other day, which is that and this is a quote, so this is not something that I'm saying, this is a quote that I read somewhere, which is that if you're depressed, you're living in the past, and if you're anxious, you're living in the future. And that kind of simplified for me so much of like what I have felt in my life. Like when I dwell on the past, I become incredibly depressed. And if I'm dwelling on the past, is that because I haven't said what it is that I needed to say? I haven't got off my chest what I need to get off my chest. Have I like held something? Have I held something for the sake of keeping somebody else happy? And the truth of the matter is that should never really happen. And that's what this song is about. It's about like kind of going, all right, fuck this. Like, like I'm going to be me no matter what. And this is me freeing myself from that. And so to go back to like the environment that it was recorded in, I needed like a padded cell. You know, like I needed a space to be able to go through all of that. And I was allowed, fortunately, to have that. And I feel incredibly grateful and incredibly blessed to be able to have been able to go through that motion. And that's basically what happened. And once it started to flow, it really started to flow. I mean, the second verse, going back to what I was talking about just now, monologuing about, is there anything inside you that you got to let go? Is it hard to keep a secret? Has it taken its toll? Is there anything inside you that you've got to let go? I mean, fuck, man, like, I don't know about you, but I feel that, like, God damn it, like, why do I hold like other people's shit? Because ultimately that just makes it bummy. And it also means that I can't see that person properly. And when I'm able to see somebody properly, I'm actually able to be more helpful and a better person. So yeah, that's what happened. It was recorded on this very microphone in a tiny studio on the computer that I'm talking to you now on, with minimal processing. I think, I put a bit of distortion on it and a bit of compression, and just went for it.
I remember we went for it. Like the rest of the band, we were in the UK. I think we were rehearsing at the same time. We were rehearsing these songs to go and play live at the same time that you were recording it. And poor Jimmy was having a horrible time. He was so confused because the length was changing. And he was like, so there aren't, like, we've lost 8 bars at the start. We've lost, what's going on here? Bless him. I think he's all right with it now. I mean, we've played it quite a few times live, so I think he's got it down now. But it kind of got to one of those things where it's like, just nod at me when the next section's coming. Just like, go like this at him. I'll still do it sometimes live as well, just to kind of piss him off. But yeah, it was very, very funny because it reminded me, like, when you were saying, like, you were chopping bits off, and like that was exactly the time that we were kind of first getting in the room after being in the studio to prepare them for going live.
Yeah. Crazy.
Good times.
Crazy, man. And I mean, I don't know. I feel now like getting this out and giving this to the world, I feel such an immense sense of relief, There's such a sense of release when that happens, and I just feel really grateful. I just feel really, really grateful and really stoked, that this track came out, A, the way that it has done, and B, that it's just in the world.
Well, there we go. Thank you to anyone that has enjoyed it, listened to it. Thank you to everyone, I guess, who worked on it. Got us, got us to the point where we can do this and put it out. But most importantly, the people that listen to it.
Yeah, damn right, man. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, everyone's reaction's been just nothing short of amazing, and I'm so grateful, man. I'm so grateful, and I'm so stoked to hear your solo, and I just love it, man. I love the simplicity of this track. Yeah, and I love the way that it sounds, and I love the fact that, like, we had to just dig for it, Yeah. For me, like I said, when it comes to digging for a song, this is important, and certainly we dug for it. So I feel stoked.